Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hot Cocoa. In this episode, we'll be looking at switching from view to view using animations and setting up our settings so that in part 3, we can save those settings and retrieve them and edit them and all the other things that you'd want to do with settings. And also, we learn why it's probably better to let Xcode set up your view and the controller for you because you might forget to do something and not find out until the end of the episode and then spend like 5 minutes trying to fix it. So that's what's coming up in this week's episode of Hot Cocoa. So to begin making our settings menu, the first thing we have to do is create a button so we can actually get to the settings menu. So let's do that with the root view controller. I'm just starting using the project from the last episode as a base. So if you want that, you can go and get it from the last one. And I opened up the wrong file. We need to go to the main window because that's where the navigation controller is. It's sort of confusing with all of these things layered on top of each other. So we're going to put a button up here that says settings. So what we need is a bar item. There we go. Here we go. Bar button item. We'll stick that up there. Call it settings. And while we're here, I will show you how, if you want, you can make this black like it is in my original application, because it's a high-tech photo application and the color black makes it look techier. So you can change that to black by doing that over in status bar, and there you go, and it even changes the button to match. We can also add the title of the application here. So this is our menu app. There we go. Now it has a title. So we'll save this, but not close it, because we're going to come back to it in a second and link something to it. The second thing we need to do is actually create our menu. So we'll do that by going File, New File. And I'll do this in two separate things this time, unlike last time where we did it in one step. So first I'm going to make the UI View Controller subclass, uncheck the Create Zib for it, because I want to do this by hand. We'll call it Settings, View Controller. Save that, there it is. Go back to File, New File, and go under User Interface and create a new view zib for the iPhone. Next, this is going to be our settings view. And I don't want it in classes, but it won't let me pick the one I want. Is this? Nah, that's going to be annoying. So we'll just hit finish and then drag it into resources. Much easier. So here's our settings view. We don't really need to do anything to it, except if you want, we can turn off the status bar, since that's going to be provided by the main window. So we will save that. Don't need to do anything to it right this moment. Actually, let's see here. Yes, we need to change the files owner from NSObject to settings view controller. So now they're linked. Normally, if you did that in one step, it would do that for you automatically. But since we did it in two separate steps, so I could name them two different things, we have to do that manually. So we'll close out settings view, and we will head back to the root view controller. And a few things we need to do here. First, let's import the settings view controller, like so. And then what we also need to do is create a method that's going to flip the view over and show our settings window. So we'll make a new IB action, and we will call that flip view. Set that up there. Go ahead and save this, and we can go back to Interface Builder, and just like normal application, link that up to our button there. So what we need to do, let's see, that is in here. So we'll link that through there, send action, flip view. So if you're having trouble finding it because the root view the controller is in a separate file than the file owner for the main window. So if you go under navigation controller, it's right there. So just drag that to there and link it up to the flip view. So we can save that, come back over here and write our flip view action. And let's put it, I guess it doesn't really matter where we put it, so let's just put it there. All right, so for our flip view, all we need to do is load the settings view, set up the animation, and then actually do the flipping. So let's start out by setting up our settings view controller. And you'll notice a slight difference from what I'm about to type. See, this right here is lowercase, which means that it's an instance of that. You could really name it anything you want. But for now, I'm going to make that lowercase to differentiate them. So we'll go here, go alloc, and then we want init with nib, scroll please, nib name, and our nib name is settings view, and you don't need to type the .zib, and our bundle is nil. Next, what we need to do before I forget is actually add that to the header. So that's settings view controller, and again, save that. Alrighty. There we go. The next thing we need to do is actually set up our UI view and set up the animation. So what we're going to do is use UI view, begin animation. Let's see, this is nil, and the context is null. That's just to set it up there, UI view, set animation duration is going to be 1 for 1 second. And then we want to set up our transition, which is set animation transition, which may be hard to see because it's a long thing, but we're going to the UI view animation transition flip from right. And you can look in the documentation and see what other animations there are. There's also flip from left and probably a few others that I don't know off the top of my head. The for view is super navigation controller dot view. And so this tells it that it's for because the root view controller is actually is separate from the main window, and we want to flip the whole thing. What we're doing is we're getting the view from the main application of the navigation controller. So if that makes sense, the view of the navigation controller, and that's how you get that. Scroll down here, change that autocomplete because it's wrong, and change caching to yes. Now what we're going to do is actually set up the window. So super, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with super, that's calling, if you want to call a method from the class that you're currently in, then you would do self and then the name of the method. If you want to call it from the next one up in the hierarchy of classes, you use super and then whatever the name of the method is. So in this case, we're using super navigation controller, and we're using its push view controller method, and do settings view controller, and animated is no, because we don't want it to push it, or because we did that already. Anyway, commit animations. There we go. And now that it's transferred over, we can get rid of this because we're not needing to do anything to it anymore. So that should be enough if we test it to get from one side of the settings to the other. Or it could just crash. Let us see here. I believe everything is normal. Alright, well, let's just continue on haphazardly. We'll see if it ends up working once I've finished putting the rest of this stuff in. So, likewise on the settings view controller, we're going to need to flip it back. So, create a new method here, IB action, flip view, the sender, copy and paste that over here. And this is pretty much the same thing, except we're doing it with the other one, or we're flipping it back the other way. So, UI view, begin animations, nil, null, and UI view set animation duration 1. And UI view set animation transition, which is going to be UI view animation transition flip from left this time. For view super navigation controller scroll, there we go. View, not controller. And cache, yes. Then we'll do super navigation controller pop view controller animated, nope. Which basically means it's going to remove the settings view controller from like the layer of things that navigation controllers keeping track of. But we're setting that not to be animated because we're animating it with UI view. Otherwise, I'm not really sure what it would do. It might try and like slide and flip at the same time. Because normally, if you notice when we go from one view of the other or to the other, navigation controller itself handles the animation and it slides it away, and then when we press back, it slides it back. But because we're doing a different animation, we don't want navigation controller also trying to animate it. So UI view again, and commit animations, do that. And what we also need to do is, this could perhaps be why it crashed, because the view didn't load. So we'll just go to, or really, so this should run by itself. But I'm trying to make it match the source code that I'm using as a reference, which is the source code that actually works. The problem with this is I'm not sure what of this stuff needs to be in there for it to run, and what of it I can leave out because it will make it more complicated when I'm trying to explain it. So let's hope this works. For the other thing we need to do is under view did load, which is right here, we need to draw a button for our back button. So UI bar button, UI bar, there we go, UI bar button item, we'll call that done button, and we'll UI bar button item alloc. There we go. And then we will do init with bar button system item UI bar button system item done. There's a bunch of preset bar button items that you can use, like done and add. And so target is going to be self. The action is going to be at selector. And we want it to run the flip view action there. And close that off. And then put it up in the bar. So self navigation. Should we capitalize? No. Item. Alright. I always get worried when it doesn't like immediately recognize it and change the colors if I'm doing something wrong, but I wasn't. So right bar button item equals done button. And now that we're done setting that up, we can release it. No button. Release. Alrighty, let me scroll through here and make sure we're doing all that we're supposed to be doing. Let me check up here. Here we go. Need to set up the init with nib name as well. So let's see. Here we need to put our nib name, which is going to be at settings view. I believe this. Let me double check one thing here real quickly. Nope, that's not the one I wanted to look at. Not sure what's up with that, but we'll do it anyway, because that's what my source code that works says. So we'll set the bundle to nil. And we will set the title of it to settings, like so. And return self. We'll save this and that. And close this. And run it again. And something broke. Just not surprising. Let's see. Expected. Yeah, that's there. Did I forget one of these? Apparently I did. Oh, we're missing an equal sign. See, what it really should have said if it actually wanted to be helpful was expected equal sign before done button, not semicolon. Alright, now let's try and run it. Settings. Crash. Alright. What's going on here? Loaded the settings view nib, but the view outlet was not set. Probably is a good idea just to run them to do them both at the same time. Because then you don't have to deal with this. That's correct. That's correct. No, not that way. Alright. Let's see if it runs now. There we go. Ta-da! So, in addition, when you're setting it up, you need to link the view to the file owner. Otherwise, it won't work. Or you can just do them both together and deal with the naming issue, and not have to worry about linking them, which I'm thinking now is the better idea. So I would say that's all the time we have. That's all the time we have for today. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, that's all the time we have for today. In next week's episode, we are going to be setting up the modal view, and we're going to be adding settings to our settings menu that we can save. And then finally, we're going to be running this on a jailbroken iPod Touch of mine, which requires a little bit of setup, and which I hope isn't too difficult, because it just occurred to me that I did not start this project using the presets for the jailbroken thing. So tune in next week to figure out if I can do it live while recording this and not have to do 15 takes. Yeah, that's it. Goodbye.